Thank you, Kevin. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Please. These things are never tall enough for me, so if it's okay, I'll pull it out. But thank you, Kevin, for that great introduction. It is great to be back in Michigan. I've been to Michigan a number of times. I've campaigned here in the UP and Saginaw and Flint, and they send me to all the tough places, I think. But I've been in Oakland County and out in Grand Rapids, so had the pleasure to visit a lot of places in your state, but I've never been to Mackinac Island. And that's why I'm really delighted to be able to be here, because not only is it amazingly beautiful, but it's got such a rich history. In fact, when you think about where this sits at the convergence of Lake Superior and Lake Huron and Lake Michigan, and the important role that it played in our past history, and of course when the French and the Brits and the Americans were fighting for control of this region, they knew that there were important shipping lanes and important military movements that would occur here. In fact, the last time that the nation was invaded in the War of 1812, it all started right here. The Brits realized what a strategic site this was, and so they invaded, seized the island before the garrison here even knew that the war was on. A reminder that border security is pretty important then and now. But it's also it's an area that's important in the political history of conservatism. If you think about the godfather of intellectual conservatism, Russell Kirk, he was from Mackinac. Is that right? Did I say that? Mackinac? No? Thank you very much. And I was corrected. His book, The Conservative Mind, really was one of those sort of works that sort of changed the discussion. He was a professor at Michigan State at the time in 1953 when he completed that book. And it started a broad debate in this country about conservative principles and their loss in American life. And his wife, widow Annette, still lives on that estate, I'm told, still very active in promoting conservative causes and entertaining people who come, conservatives who come to visit. And so I think it's fitting that we're here in Michigan to have a discussion and a debate about the future of our nation and the future of our Republican Party. This is an important time for both, and a decision time about what kind of America we want for our children and grandchildren, and how Republican leadership and governance can fit into that equation. And when we think about our future, I think it's also important that we remember and are reminded of our past. Back in 1906, there were two Norwegian brothers named Nikolai and Matthew Gjelsvik who came to this country in pursuit of the American dream. And when they landed on the shores of America, the only English they knew were the words apple pie and coffee, which evidently they had a lot of on the ship ride over. And when they got to Ellis Island, the immigration officials there asked them to change their name, because their name, Gjelsvik, which is spelled G-J-E-L-S-V-I-K, they thought was too difficult to spell and pronounce for people in this country. And so they picked the name of the farm where they worked near Bergen, Norway, which was the Thune farm. And so Nikolai Gjelsvik became Nick Thune, my grandfather. And he and my great-uncle came out to South Dakota, worked on the railroad, learned English, saved up enough money to start a small merchandising company, which later became a hardware store. And although the family is not associated with it anymore, there is still a Thune Hardware on Main Street in Mitchell, South Dakota. But they went on, my grandfather married a girl who had moved to South Dakota from Iowa, and they raised three sons in the middle of the Great Depression. The middle son, my father, Harold, became a very accomplished basketball player, went on to star at the University of Minnesota, where he was the team's MVP. And then when World War II broke out, he signed up, became a naval aviator, was assigned to the aircraft carrier Intrepid in the Pacific theater of the war, where he was involved in one of the great naval battles in modern history, the Second Battle of the Philippine Seas, where he, over what is modern-day Taiwan, in a dogfight, shot down 4 enemy aircraft, for which he was awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross. And so, like so many Americans of that era, when their time was over, their duty was over, he came back to my hometown, Myrtle, South Dakota. At that time, population probably about 1,000. It's down to 500 now. And settled down. By that time, he was married, and he raised 5 kids. I'm the 4th of those 5 kids. And I can't help but thinking that my grandfather, when he arrived on the shores of America in 1906, never would have thought that he would have a grandson who had the opportunity, the privilege to serve in the United States Senate. You know, that's what is so unique and special about America. And, you know, if you think about our heritage in this country and you think about all those stories, and I talked to somebody in this room today who has a similar story that family started a business, people come here from other places around the world because they want what we have. They want to be able to pursue that American dream. And my fear, ladies and gentlemen, is that dream is in jeopardy today for way too many of our children and grandchildren because of the liberal policies that are being put in place by Democrat leadership in this country. If you think about the economic indicators today, the debt, we talk about the debt, but if you think about it, it took 43 presidents 232 years to accumulate the first $6.3 trillion in debt. And it's taken President Obama under 5 years to double it. The labor participation rate in the country today is the lowest that it's been literally since when President Carter was in office, 63.2%. What that means is that there are fewer people in the workforce today than there have been in the last 35 years. And this is the slowest recovery, literally, in the last half century. That's what these economic policies have wrought. And so, ladies and gentlemen, when you look at the economy today and you ask yourself the question, do Democrat policies work? I think the answer is no. And I have to say that the reason that I'm here tonight, and I think most of you are here tonight, is because you all still believe that America is an exceptional country. Can we settle that tonight? America an exceptional country? Let's make no mistake about that. And the reason that it is an exceptional country is because of those principles that we as Republicans hold dear. The rule of law, our matchless Constitution, which was designed to create a limited government. Personal freedom coupled with individual responsibility. A belief in economic freedom and free markets and free enterprise. That the best way to preserve the peace is to be strong and to maintain your strength. Those are basic, core Republican principles. And what I would tell you this evening, ladies and gentlemen, is that I think that we have gotten away from those principles in this country. You know, Ronald Reagan used to say there are no easy answers, but there are simple answers. And if you look at just the challenges and the problems that we face in the country today, and you take and apply those simple principles, the things I just talked about, you get good outcomes and good results and good solutions. And all you have to do is look right here in the state of Michigan. You look at what Governor Snyder has done and the way that the economy is starting to come back and you're creating manufacturing jobs and the unemployment rate has come down in your state. It's those types of policies put in place by Republican leaders who understand that those principles work. Taking on the unions and making Michigan a right-to-work state. I mean, that's a remarkable accomplishment. And your neighbor next door, Governor Walker, across the pond, as Ryan said, doing the same sorts of things, leading courageously, laying out an agenda based and built around conservative principles and following through on it, as Reince Priebus so eloquently put it. Republican principles work. And the problem that we have in America today is that we've got a leader in our country, and leaders in Washington, D.C., who believe that the answer is not to expand and grow the economy, but to expand and grow government. And we're seeing the effects and the results of that. Obamacare, 20,000 pages of regulations, 2,700 pages of law. I don't know if you've seen this stack, but the 20,000 pages of regulations stacked this tall is about 7 feet. I'm 6'4" or 5", and it's at least a half a foot taller than I am. Somebody has to interpret all that. Somebody has to make sense out of it. And if you travel in my state of South Dakota or in Michigan or Wisconsin or any place else, what businesses will tell you is that the uncertainty associated with that law, the mandates and the requirements and the costs are the biggest job killer in America today. And people across this country want something done about it. And we're going to do everything we can in Washington, D.C. to defund, delay, stop, repeal, whatever we can do to keep this thing from being... from the harmful effects it'll have on the American people. But we've gotten a little bit off track. But we can get back on track. We can turn it around. And all it takes is, as I said, is leaders who aren't afraid to lead and governing principles that lead to better solutions and better results. How about health care? We were talking about this earlier this evening. And the whole idea that, okay, so Obamacare doesn't work. We know that. We know that taking over 1/6 of the American economy is not a good solution when it comes to I guess addressing the challenges that we have in our healthcare system in America today. So what is? Well, how about trying some Republican principles? How about trying choice and competition? How about allowing interstate purchase of health insurance, allowing people to buy insurance across state lines? How about allowing small businesses to join larger groups so they get the benefit of group purchasing power? How about reducing defensive medicine costs by ending junk lawsuits? Something that some of our state's leaders have tried, but something that we desperately need in Washington, D.C. Or giving people more choice and benefiting from the competition that makes our economy so great. Giving people a refundable tax credit to buy their own insurance. I mean, there's so many great Republican solutions to the issue of health care. And not only do we need to be out there talking about how harmful Obamacare is, we need to be talking about what Republicans would do differently and why our policies will get different results, will give people better access to health care at a more affordable cost. We've got to be talking about the solutions and the alternatives that are built around Republican principles. What about the economy? What can we do to create jobs and increase take-home pay for more Americans? Well, how about reforming the tax code by getting the tax rates down so that we're more competitive in the world marketplace? We have the highest tax on business in the entire world. And so we're having our lunch eaten by countries around the world. Jobs are going overseas. We can fix our tax code, but we can't fix it by raising taxes on the people that create jobs, which is what the President and his allies in Congress want to do. How about some energy solutions? We have some incredible energy opportunities in America today if we'll just take advantage of them. And we could have a competitive edge when it comes to energy and lead the world and make it less expensive in this country to do business, make it less expensive for consumers so they're not spending as much of their disposable income on energy so they have money to spend on other things if we would develop these energy solutions. But we have an administration and a bureaucracy in Washington, D.C. that has decided that they don't want to do that. And the Keystone Pipeline is example number one of that, exhibit number one. All the President has to do is sign that basically and start the construction. And pretty soon we have, according to his own State Department, 42,000 new jobs in this country. So it's hanging out there. How about a balanced budget? You know, our state of South Dakota has a balanced budget amendment in our Constitution. We need that in Washington, D.C. Now, you've got governors like Governor Schneider, Governor Walker, people in this room that know how to balance their budgets. But, you know, with Washington, D.C., we haven't been able to do that since, I don't know, 1960s, I think. Well, we need a discipline imposed. A balanced budget amendment in our Constitution is really the only airtight way that we can ensure that Washington will get its spending habits under control. And as I mentioned, when it comes to health care, there are all kinds of good Republican solutions and alternatives. There are no easy answers, but there are simple answers. And if we will take those principles, those simple principles, and apply them to the challenges and the problems that we have today, we'll get good results and good outcomes. And it starts right here. It starts in the state of Michigan. You know, as I look at around the map of the country and the opportunities that we have in the Senate elections in 2014, you know, we've got some states like mine. We've got an open seat in the state of South Dakota. I'm very hopeful that we're going to be able to turn that into a Republican seat. We've got seats in other places where there are open seats, and one of them happens to be right here in Michigan. And we think it'd be great if Michigan could send a Republican United States Senator to Washington, D.C. to represent you and help turn this country around. I know Terry Lynn Land is out working hard. And all I know is this. When Election Day rolls around in November of 2014 and all the votes are coming in and it's all counted, Michigan very well could be the 51st Republican United States Senate seat. And that's why we need everybody involved. You've got lots of races on the ballot. The governor's running for re-election, the Attorney General, Bill Schuette's running for re-election. You're going to have 9 of the 14 House seats here in Michigan that we're going to be defending that are Republican seats, and perhaps some opportunities to pick up more state and state House and Senate races all across your state. And there's no better time than now to start or continue the change that you have started here in Michigan, to turn this state around, take it in a new direction, not just here in the state of Michigan, but with the representation that you send to Washington, D.C. And I hope that you will do everything within your power to make that happen. You know, I think about the first time I ran for the United States Senate, and I lost that election by 524 votes. It was a very, very close election. It was hard fought. It was expensive. And, you know, when it was all said and done, you've kind of invested everything in this. You put everything on the line, and your families put everything on the line, and you walk away from a race like that, and you can be very discouraged and very, very frustrated. And I remember having a conversation with my wife after that election. We were sitting in my living room in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and she looked at me and she said, "I'm not going through another campaign unless God himself comes to the door and says you have to run." And I said, "Well, I don't think that's going to happen, honey." So she was through with it. She was completely through with it. But you know, the funny thing was, about 6 months later, we were sitting in our living room in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and after she'd had some time to sort of process that loss, and whenever you go through a tough campaign, you know, you gain a little perspective with time. And she looked at me and she said, "You know, I finally concluded and realized what we went through in losing that election last year wasn't just about the winning, it was about the race." I was like, "What?" Of course it was about the winning. You know, I'm a competitor. It's always about the winning. But she made a really important observation. And that is, yes, we worked hard. We were in it to win it. But at the end of the day, it's about being out there fighting for the things that you believe in, being in the arena. In order to be successful in a campaign for any elective office, you have to have a group of people behind you that makes it happen. Governor Snyder reminded me earlier tonight when I first ran for the House back in 1996. He was one of my early contributors. But you know, you got to have people that are willing to write checks. You got to have people that are willing to walk neighborhoods. You have to have people who are willing to make phone calls, to pound in yard signs, to write letters to the editor, to work with Chairman Priebus and Chairman Shostak here in Michigan, and just all those volunteer things that are out there that just take, it's a labor of love. It just takes time. It takes talent. It takes some of your treasure maybe to invest in it. But if we're going to change the direction of this country, we all have to be willing to do what we can do. And that may mean writing a check to your favorite candidate or to the party, either locally or at the Michigan State Party. I'm sure that they would welcome that. But we've got some wonderful opportunities. We have a great heritage and a great history, and we'll have a great future if we don't mortgage it by continuing to expand government instead of expanding the private economy where the real jobs are created in this country, and instead of expanding the role of government in every area of life. I mean, in South Dakota, we like our freedoms. You know, we believe profoundly in personal freedom. We also believe in individual responsibility. And we have to remember that as a party, we are the party of freedom, but we're also the party of responsibility. And people in America today, I think, have to understand that there are, you know, we can't have government do everything for us. We are a much, much better culture, a much, much better society, and we will have a much, much better and more prosperous future for our children and grandchildren if we're willing to stay and adhere to those core values and principles that I just mentioned. Ronald Reagan once said that freedom is always only one generation removed from extinction. It can't be passed on in the bloodstream. It has to be fought for and defended and handed down to our children to do the same, or one day we will spend our sunset years telling our children's children what it was once like to live in the United States of America where men were free. This is about freedom. This is about our future. And this is about whether that great heritage and that pursuit of the American dream that brought my grandfather and great-uncle to America back in 1906, and that probably so many people in this room can tell similar stories who have similar narratives. People came to this country in pursuit of that American dream. Well, that's at risk and in jeopardy today, and unless we are willing to change the path that we are on at the national level. And it's going to take all the hands on deck. And so I hope that everybody here in Michigan understands what is at stake and is willing to roll up their sleeves and to do the blocking and the tackling that's a necessary part of winning campaigns. You know, when I was the high school I went to, we had a guy on the football team one year who didn't get into the game very much. And so he got in for a series of downs once, and he came off the field, and the coach said, "How is it going out there, Barry?" And he said, "Geez, Coach, they're pushing and shoving." Well, it's football, you know, people push and shove. Well, there's a lot of pushing and shoving in politics. It's a tough, rough and tumble business. But it's so important, ladies and gentlemen, that we have the right kind of leadership, the right kind of governance, the right kind of principles leading us in our future. I have a plaque on the wall of my office, and it's a quote that was made by a guy who was the Prime Minister of the Netherlands back in the 1800s. He also happened to be an ordained minister in the Reformed denomination. And he said, "When principles that run up against your most deeply held convictions begin to win the day, then battle is your calling, and peace has become sin. You must, at the price of dearest peace, lay bare your convictions before friend and enemy with all the fire of your faith." How willing are we to roll up our sleeves and put the fire of our faith to work for the betterment and for the future of our children and our grandchildren for this great country? Ladies and gentlemen, we have a great, great heritage. This is a party that is strong and growing stronger in places like Michigan, in places like Wisconsin, in places like South Dakota, because men and women are understanding what's at stake, and they care enough about the future of this country to get involved. I know you don't need to hear that here in Michigan because you have always led the way, but we're about bringing change to Washington, D.C., and Michigan is right in the crosshairs this year. You're in a position, you're poised to make a difference that can change the course of this future, of the direction of this country, if we can get some change in the composition of your congressional delegation in Washington, D.C. So thank you for the chance to be here in Mackinac Island. It's great to be back in Michigan. I hope you'll come and see us in the state of South Dakota. You know, we don't have the oil that they have in North Dakota. I always say they have oil in North Dakota, they have coal in Wyoming, they have some of both in Montana, and South Dakota has pheasants. But we like to sell what we have. We have a lot of people that come out and hunt pheasants in our state. But it is a beautiful state, and I'm blessed to have the privilege to represent it in the United States Senate. But I'm blessed to be here with you this evening and to encourage you as Michiganders to keep on keeping on for a better and a brighter future for our children and grandchildren. Thank you very much. May God bless you, and may He bless our great country. Thank you.